Good. So today, Mr. Valerii Pekar, he is a lecturer at the Kiev Mohyla and Lviv Business School. I probably pronounced that wrong. And a former member of the National Reform Council. He is a co-founder of Nova Krajina civic platform, and so intimately involved in what we call the civic movement in Ukraine. And I've come to know Valerii, I think, 2 years ago now. And what struck me directly is his great understanding of spiral dynamics, and also his great ability to apply it in analyzing what's happening in Ukraine and around Ukraine and in this war. So we're very happy that Valerii made his time today to present to us his view of what's happening in Ukraine, what's happening in a war, and a possible path to lasting peace in Europe. So, Valerii, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, Leida. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to present today my view on the war and peace and the future of sustainable peace. So, and now I will share my screen to show you some schemes. Can you now see my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Great. Great. So I would like to use the power of integral approach and spiral dynamics to understand what is being held in Ukraine, in Russia, and around, and to speak about the war and the way to sustainable peace today. Let's start with the question, why the second most powerful army in the world was unable to win? And the Russian army is much greater and much stronger than Ukrainian army. How it is possible that Ukrainian army overcomes? The answer is that a war is waged not only by armies, but also by states and societies. And if we should use the very flat view, non-integral view, we should see just soldiers of two armies trying to kill each other. But if we should use integral view, we should see a lot of things behind two fighting armies. We should see political and economic and legal systems and propaganda and resources. We should see values and spirituality and thinking of both servicemen and civilians. And we should see cultural, language, religion, customs, stereotypes, and imagined communities and shared dreams about the war and peace and the end of the war. So looking at societal development as waves, which could be described using levels of spiral dynamics, I guess the majority of people here understand these waves which are rolling over each other and increasing the diversity all the time. I should use a simpler picture to understand ways of Russia and Ukraine. Both Russia and Ukraine left Soviet Union being mostly blue, being traditional hierarchic societies sharing some Soviet culture and Soviet hierarchies and social systems. But today I can say both Ukraine and Russia has both majority of blue. I think Ukraine is something like 80% blue. Maybe Russia is something like 70–80% blue. But they are going different ways. Ukraine started its way to orange. Russia started its way to red. And we should ask ourselves why this is so. Russia and Ukraine had practically the same level and the same spectrum of spiral dynamics levels in 1991 when Soviet Union disappears, sharing practically the same level of economic, social, political, cultural, mental development. After the hard 90s, ways became different. Ukraine cures the social trauma of disappearing of social and economic systems by going forward to modernization, to orange. Russia cures the social trauma by going back to resentment and revenge. Why we have this fork? Why ways are different? We should look at lower left quadrant of integral approach to see the difference because both lower right and upper left were mostly the same, but lower left quadrants were extremely different, maybe since as far as 1169. Very different political cultures for centuries and centuries. And both countries accelerated after 2014. That is why Putin announced the final solution of the Ukrainian questions, copying Hitler, which announced the final solution to Jewish question. So countries going very different way. Please forgive me noise around me because there are I'm in Ukrainian house in Davos, having a chance to speak with you about some events around me. So different ways means that Ukraine is fighting for its future and Russia is fighting for its past. Let's dive deeply into these levels of spiral dynamics. So blue means empires and colonies, very traditional extractive economy, pattern client politics, and traditional paternalistic values of order and stability and security shared by the majority of people, ethnic identity, subjects, not citizens, and closed social elevators. This is a classical sustainable multi-level social pyramid. Soviet social pyramid was very close to medieval feudal social pyramid. And what does it mean, orange, in this context? Modernity, national states, inclusive economy, accountable governance, modern values, rational critical thinking, national identity of political nations, citizens at the time, not subjects, and closed social elevators are now open. Sorry for this mistake. So this is what Douglas North, a Nobel Prize winner in economics, called open access. This is what Daron Acemoglu called inclusive institutions. So this is the traditional transit to modernity, which all European nations had one time in their history. But Russia goes back from traditional blue to force, to red. Red here is ruled by force, highly extractive economy, highly centralized, captured state, captured by one group of people. And it is important that traditional blue values of security, order, and justice are replaced by red values of survival on the bottom and domination on the top. These are pure criminal values which were promoted for decades in Russia by state policy through songs, through movies, through serial, and so on, with a cult of leader, with language of hatred, that cult of violence, and a lack of legal succession mechanism. So nobody knows who is the next Putin. This is, we know what means integral development, but integral degradation is also possible. Imagine that economics goes from blue oligarch feudal model of very complicated pyramidal power balance to the despotic hyper-centralized system, which reminds us first days of European barbarian kingdoms. Politics from blue non-liberal democracy to absolutely red autocratic empire. Even religion from traditional blue Christian orthodoxy to red heretic promotion of superiority of one group of people above others. And this is many top hierarchs of Orthodox Christianity consider a Russian version of Orthodoxy is not Christian anymore, because this is not about love, this is not about honesty, this is about domination. So Summarizing, Ukraine is fighting for its future and waging a war of independence, and Russia is fighting for its past, for the restoration of the empire and the seat of the club of great powers. But more than 2,500 years ago, when first books on on the art of strategy appeared in ancient China, most wise people said that you can win the war for the future. You can lose the war for the future, but you can also only lose war for the past. You cannot win the war for the past. You cannot win the war for the past was said in China exactly that time when Heraclius in Greece, in ancient Greece, said that you cannot come the same river twice because the past already gone and you cannot win a war for the past. So Ukraine is waging an independence war, anti-colonial, anti-imperialist, uh, and because empires didn't release anyone voluntarily, and indeed, Russian Empire is not an exception. So we see two different societies: hierarchical and centralized society governed by the strong system of rule based on fear and subservience, and Ukrainian modern network society of free citizens accustomed to the value of freedom, dignity, and self-sufficiency. Not the whole Ukrainian society is like that, but some 20% is like that, is modern, and this is enough to create absolutely different social system. So the Russian army is facing not the weak Ukrainian army. The Russian army is facing the whole Ukrainian society and can't overcome it. How modern society fights? We see a lot of different indicators of that and a lot of different things which deserve romance and movies. Starting from the wild-scale network of civil movements for armor supply and rescue and assistance to internally displaced persons and so on, the rise of the diaspora, the guerrilla war and non-violent protests in occupied territories, which we could not see these videos without fear, and information resistance movements, and enormous support for the army from local people in villages and cities near the front line, and dignity of local leaders elected by people, and in the density of social fabric, which ensures fantastic Ukrainian resilience. And on the other hand, we see authoritarian Russian system, which indeed authoritarianism allows to quickly gather and direct vast resources, but produces extremely low quality decisions. Why? Because decisions in these authoritarian systems almost are based on inadequate information, and the red management culture, as far as you know, from spiral dynamics, cultivates lies, fear, and personal loyalty, not a professional competence. That is why authoritarian rule looks very strong, but is very weak in the practice. And indeed, I have to share vision in this within this integral community that the fundamental reason of the war is here oil. Oil production and processing require huge capital investment. Either you have capital markets in your countries like Norway or United States, or only the state has money for investment into oil production and processing. And that means that this is not a free market economy. This is as a state economy which supports autocracy, collecting huge amount of money and investing into war. This is a connection of the war to problems which are well known to all of us: to climate change, to COVID, environmental challenges, and so on. And at the same time, renewable energy, green energy supports democracy. So green energy is not only green in terms of energy, it's also green in terms of spiral dynamics. So just to mention, are negotiations likely? Indeed, any war is over by negotiation, but we have two factors. On the one hand, Russian factor. Putin isn't ready for negotiations because for them, this is a war for the existence of Ukraine, not for territories. And Putin doesn't have red lines. doesn't need to save face, doesn't need to consult with citizens, and Ukrainian factor also. So Ukrainian people are not ready today to trade the lives of their relatives and friends and colleagues on occupied territories, which every day are being murdered, raped, taken as hostages, tortured, sent to concentration camps like Nazis, and so on. So here I would like to offer you the view on the war from all levels of spiral dynamics. Indeed, many Europeans traditionally green look at the war from green point of view. Both parties need a dialogue. Ceasefire should stop the war. There is a room for compromise. All the way there is room for compromise. In any conflicts, both parties are guilty. And how can we be sure that we know the truth? This is a traditional green view which gives the voice to all parties and which indeed is very good for protection of minorities and many other important things in the modern world. But if we understand that green isn't alone, green isn't isolated, there are other levels of spiral dynamics as well in this war. So what orange says? Orange says, sorry, there is truth, there are facts which can be established. And when we know the truth, the opposite is lie. And there is no symmetry between rapist and victim. You cannot say to rapist and victim, just reconcile and negotiate. So, but even deeper is blue. And what blue says? Blue says there is a clear difference between good and evil, between truth and lie. And what red says? Red says, who exchange freedom for security? Loses both. And what says purple? Purple says, sorry, whoever comes to kill you, kill him first and leave. And if someone says he would like to come to kill you, believe him, believe him. So here I would like to say to Europeans, Putin many times says that he is fighting with the West and he would like to destroy the life of European nations. From purple point of view, it is cheaper to believe, not to ignore his words. So here we have a red challenge, which is clearly depicted on this illustration. We have the red challenge. Red doesn't think about long-term consequences. Red considers politeness as weakness. Red never remembers lessons of the past. Red never negotiates. Red understands only immediate response without any delay. So what to do? Green, unfortunately, our European green fails facing a red challenge because green understands what not good with that. Green understands war as a conflict of two evil forces where good people suffer on both sides of the front line. Green says no matter who wins and who loses, start dialogue as soon as possible. Just reconcile. We don't care who rapes and who was raped. Conflict is bad. Peace is good. War is bad. Weapon means war. Stop supplying weapon and peace will come. Green meme can't see a war where one party is innocent or fighting for his life, for his freedom, for his independence, for the very existence against dictatorship. And Green thinks a war always ends with peace and the war is over when TV stops to show it. So that's a problem. Green has a great advantage. It gives voice to every party, to every minority, to all parties on the conflict. But green facing red fails. We should be more integral. Green is lost in the face of aggression because sincerely advocating for peace and harmony, I would like to emphasize, sincerely advocating for peace and harmony, Green often unwillingly nurtures. And the only answer to aggression is peace mantra and Stockholm syndrome and the habit of powerlessness. This is our green post-modern, post-heroic societies, which forgot that they stay on blood of their own heroes, which ensured their today security. And now I'm speaking not about Ukraine. Now I'm speaking not about abstract things, because recently, Minister of Defense of Sweden, and then within a few days, Minister of Defense on the United Kingdom already stated, the long era of security and peace is over. Dear Europeans, they said, dear people of Great Britain, dear Swedes, people of Sweden, but the same statement could be done by every defense minister of every European countries now. Indeed, our friends and from Baltic states know very well what I'm speaking about. So this is not about Ukraine. This is not about abstract things. So green, postmodern, post-heroic societies fail facing red aggression. So what to do? Should we forget about green? Should we transform ourselves to red? No, never. We should be more integral. We should transform our green failure to green flourishing, because response to unhealthy green is not unhealthy red. Response to unhealthy green is healthy green. We should leave green to the deepest of our heart, because green empathy could transform experience to lived experience. There are very nice German words, Erlebnis zur Erfahrung. But healthy integral green should also include orange rationality and creativeness, blue moral compass, and red strength and resoluteness and resilience. So healthy green is resilient, healthy green is decentralized, healthy green, healthy green is live, anti-fragile in terms of Nassim Taleb. And we can see some examples in Ukraine now of healthy green, which is integral. Indeed, Ukrainian society is not green. And so this is not a stable level. There are peak states triggered by unprecedented circumstances rather than mass practice. But we could research and see. And also, as a part of integral green, healthy green, we need also healthy red, because red could serve and resonate with us within our heart. And we need healthy red because we still have unhealthy red to oppose. And only healthy red, which says, protect your family, protect your home, stay and fight for your life. Only healthy red would oppose unhealthy red. So we should go from green failure to green flourishing. And we could see now in Ukraine all those indicators of healthy green, like spontaneous horizontal networks, crowdfunding, crowdsourcing, open code, wiki cooperation, without bosses and without hierarchies, collective leadership, open access. And we are laughing in Ukraine when Putin say, where is the center of Ukrainian volunteer movement? We have to destroy it. Because a volunteer movement has no centers, or it has a million of centers. Million hertz are million centers of this volunteer movement, of this huge horizontal green network. So the world after, every country will is going its way. So we should ask ourselves how to facilitate Ukraine to go to orange, and how to save Russia going to red. So now I would like to pay attention to the way out of war to the peace. But again, we should speak about integral view to war. War is waging in upper right, but war starts in up in lower right. The war is born in lower right, in political system and propaganda. And when some unhealthy green says us about forgiveness, forgiveness isn't enough. Forgiveness is not integral. Forgiveness is just upper left. And we need to cover all levels, all quadrants, and only this is the way for sustainable peace. So who will finally make integral changes in Russia? How to make changes not only in mentality, but in political systems, in culture, and so on. Not just behavior, not just stop firing, not just ceasefire, but integral change in all quadrants of integral model. And here we see the false dichotomy offered by Moscow to the West. Moscow trap provides a false dichotomy of two different scenarios. First, a scenario of consolidation of power in Moscow, which means continued war, nuclear threat, and strengthening of China, because Russia will be a satellite of China. and the whole world authoritarian axis. And second scenario, collapse of power, which means huge risks, uncontrolled proliferation for nuclear weapon, excessive strengthening of China with Russian resources, internal conflicts, ethnic cleanses, fantastic large-scale refugee crisis, humanitarian catastrophe, and even ISIS on the second ISIS on the Russian territories with radical Islamism. So two scenarios: strong power in Moscow, weak power in Moscow. This is a false dichotomy. This is a trap prepared by Moscow for the West, because there are no two scenarios. There are three scenarios. This is Moscow centrism. If you are looking only on Moscow, you have just two scenarios: strong power, weak power. One bit of information generally provides us with two scenarios, but there are three scenarios. So, but I would like to also to pay attention to the idea of democracy in Russia. So, people which study history, they know term of path dependence. Here, I would like to remind words of famous Russian philosopher Nikolai Berdyaev, who said, "From February to October of 1917, all kinds of parties and ideas paraded before the admiring Russian gaze. And what did a Russian man choose? He chose what he had, what is a Tsar and an empire." So democracy means not only political party and equal access to media and honest counting the votes, and so and NGOs capable to monitor and courts to protect justice and so on, but also democracy needs democratic people, democratic citizens, without imperial aspiration and resentment and desire. So now Russian chauvinism prevails in Russian society. It is just something like 15%, but this is the only ideology which has now power. And here is the answer. The answer is that Russian Federation is not monolith. There are more than 100 nationalities, nations in Russia which are oppressed. According to official data, which are not true, at least 28% of the population are not taking Russians. The real figure is much closer, something like 40%, and maybe even 50%, according to some Russian researchers. So if there are Russians and non-Russians in Russia 50-50, this is absolutely different story. And the next salon will invite Mr. Dorjo Dugarov, one of leaders of Buryat Democratic Movement, which is one of the biggest nations of Russian Federation, which is not a federation but an empire, because we see a long history of genocides, deportations, prohibition of languages, cultural oppression, deprivation of lands, violation of human rights and people rights, and so on. And we see now many republics, 21 republics, which are republics only on the paper, which declared sovereignty. But indeed, this was 30 years ago, and now nothing from that sovereignty we can see in real life. And also Russian-speaking regions have strong identities, like Siberia, like Far East, like Kazakh people, and so on. So, but the West could not see this story, because the West, unfortunately, I'm so sorry to say that the West has a blind spot. We see numerous violations of human rights, people rights, rights of women, rights of minorities, ecological risks, and many, many other things which are out of the focus of defenders and democratic movements in Western countries because of many reasons. And I would appreciate here my friend Yuliya Shtaltovna, which is now posting to your chat references to some articles which highlight these problems more deeper. So this is the decolonization scenario, which is the hard model, but we have also the high probability of not risky and softer scenario, which is refederalization scenario, which it definitely prevent nuclear, humanitarian, and other risks. So this is one of the possible maps of Northern Eurasia with many democratic countries which don't want to be oppressed, don't want to live in empire, and they would like to their rights to be protected as well as rights of other nations. So the West allows to peoples of Africa to be free from colonial regimes, people from Latin America, people from Asia, people from other parts of the world, but not Northern Eurasia. Northern Eurasia people should be oppressed. This is the position of the West today, and we have to change this position. And I would like, by my speech, to encourage all of you who think about human rights, about people's rights, about minorities' rights, about female rights, and so on, about ecological risks, all our postmodern studies, to think about all those oppressed people and to give voice to them. They are hidden nations. Nobody knows about their real life. And we should give them freedom as we gave freedom to Africa, Asia, and Latin America. They have blood of the same color, and they also have human dignity, and they need to be free. They have to be free. So I'm finishing now just with some remarks. What holds the empire together? Some specific ties like redistribution of money, fear of punishment, common identity. So money, number first, redistribution of money. There are much less money. There are much less fear of punishment. There is no common identity. There is no common ideology. There is just some social inertia. And unity and legitimacy declines very, very slow. We should compare our time with 1991. Where there are some similarities. In 1991, Soviet Union disappeared. Nobody believed that Soviet Union would disappear just a few weeks before Soviet Union disappeared. We have similar things like economic difficulties, the weakening of the center, and fall of ideologies, and rise of identities, and so on. But some new factors contributed to the destruction of empire, like Cold War, like sanctions, like demographic factors, and indeed new power players with their own interests, and indeed success stories. For some of these nations, oppressed nations, Ukraine is an example for them. For Estonia, Azerbaijan are good examples and success stories, and they dream to be like that. So we should learn lessons from 1991 that unity and systemic legitimacy, we can gradually, and then one day this integration just happens rapidly and could not be back restored. So people want to preserve security and stability with blue majority. The major request of people is security and stability for blue. And when the West thinks about business as usual, we cannot go back because system is ready to crash. I remember very well 1991 when the Western politicians, Western policymakers supported Gorbachev, who would like to save Soviet Union, but he controlled nothing. The collapse was inevitable, and now the collapse is also inevitable, and risks are high. That is why the process should be managed. So our to-do list for Western country policymakers is understand the risk, create the international coalition to provide people's nations, oppressed nations, captured nations with freedom, and stay true to the basic principles of the United Nations, which say all human beings have equal dignity. All nations have a right to be free, and support peaceful decolonization and reconstruction, and insist on key principles of this process like denuclearization, peaceful resolution of conflicts, human rights protection, and so on. So we ask Western policymakers to build a relationship with new independent states and their leaders in advance to facilitate appearance of new free people. All those things are listed in so-called Sustainable Peace Manifesto prepared by Ukrainian public intellectuals. And just my last slide is that God, Holy God, has no hands except ours. So first is to support Ukraine to prevent war in the heart of Europe. And Our victory is your victory. Our defeat is your defeat. And the war is closer to your native towns and cities, much closer than you imagine. This is a very important point. I'm speaking not about distant lands, I'm speaking about the heart of Europe, and war day by day is closer and closer to your towns. And indeed, if we are not enough green, if we really believe to human dignity, we should stop closing our eyes to the tragedy of the peoples of Russia. We should help oppressed, captive peoples and nations of Russia to be free and to start their own democratic development, and to have reliable allies in Europe, America, Ukraine, Japan, Southern Korea, and other democratic countries. Thank you very much for your attention. I understand it was a little bit packed. If you would like to get the slides to review, it is possible. And now I'm give floor back to okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much, Valerii. Yeah, as Katrina already pointed out, you are in Davos, and you have some background noise which we couldn't get rid of. So just for the people that haven't read the chat. Thank you very much, Valerii. So we have time for questions on the content of this presentation. And if you can put up your hand, you can in reactions there, you can raise your hand, and then I'll call the people one by one. Anybody? Gotcha, please.
Yes, hello. So good evening, and thank you for invitation. And I have a question to Valerii. When I was listening to your presentation, I grow some idea about, especially about your last slides. So you talk about future denuclearization of Russia. Me as a long time activist and politician, many times I was talking with American diplomats and some European diplomats, and the first thing that they always was asking me, okay, in the future, maybe Buryatia will be independent from Russia. What you will be do with your nuclear weapons? The nuclear weapons which Russia put on Buryatian territory, and but now I thought that there is one big issue. What? It's this question which always was asked to me. It shows that these diplomats, American, European, they are doing something, lack of desire to deal with the important issue. They trying to throw this question, very important question, on our shoulder. Future Buryatia, for example, we receive independence, and actually we receive some nuclear weapons, but in our side, we have no experience to how to manage this. So maybe Ukraine, as a leader of nowadays of anti-imperialistic struggle, can you offer some ideas, some project how to solve this problem of denuclearization for all other countries which will be on the post-Russian territory? So this is my question. Thank you. So one moment. Why I asking this from Valerii and from Ukraine? Because the problem started with, we know this Budapest Memorandum, how it started, why Russia have a possibility to attack Ukraine. So that's why this question rose here in my mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dojo. This is a very nice question. It is clear that Ukraine passed its nuclear weapons, a huge arsenal of nuclear weapons, to be nuclear free and to sign a so-called Budapest Memorandum. Thank you very much for this information. To be protected by other big nations. But first, in today's warfare, nuclear weapons are not the real weapons of defense. When United States and Soviet Union tried to contain each other on the battlefield, on the global battlefield, they rely on nuclear weapon as the weapon of containment. Americans understand that if they attacked first, then Soviet Union attacks second, and both countries will be destroyed. Soviet leaders understand that if Soviet Union attacks first, then America responds, and both countries will be destroyed. But this doesn't work so with countries like Iran. Could you be sure that Iran loves life of their nation to avoid nuclear war? So this is not a weapon of mutual containment anymore. This is just a weapon of destruction of the planet. So that is why the idea is very simple. New independent countries should pass all nuclear objects under the control of International Agency for Nuclear Energy, and it was a big mistake. So the big mistake of the West was not about the Budapest Memorandum. The big mistake of the West was that Ukrainian nuclear weapons were handed over not to the international agency under international control, but to Russia. So that means that Russia became stronger in nuclear terms. Russia became a nuclear superpower because arsenals of other independent countries of post-Soviet Union were transferred to Russia, not to international agency, but to Russia. And that is why Russia became more stronger than it could be imaginable, and then thought one day that it could attack other countries like Georgia, like Moldova, like Ukraine. And I think this list is not over. Next aggression will be soon, very, very soon. So my Ukrainian answer to my Buratian friends and to my Udmurtian friends and to my Komi friends and other nations of Russian Empire, that please take all your nuclear weapons and pass under the control of international agency, get international recognition like Ukraine got, get international economic support like Ukraine got, but at the same time, please create a strong military treaty to prevent next aggression of Russian chauvinists. Because single Tatarstan and single Bashkortostan and single Mariel republics could not oppose aggression from Moscow if this aggression will come within a generation, within 25, 50 years. But the defense treatment like Northern Europe, like Northern Atlantic, maybe something like Northern European defense treaty of all nations, from Buryats to Chechens, from Karels to Yakuts, could protect their nations from Moscow aggression, and everybody in the world has great interest for sustainable peace in Northern Eurasia. And nuclear weapons are not anymore a weapon of attack, not anymore a weapon of defense, and not an instrument of peace. It is just an instrument for crazy autocrats like Iran or Northern Korea. And this should be eliminated one day. Thank you.
Thanks, Valerii. Barbara, welcome. Good to see you back here. Please ask your question. You're on mute, Barbara.
Following up on that, it occurs to me for most of you, this is in your backyard, right? So, it really doesn't matter whether they're saturation bombing you with conventional stuff or, lobbing a small nuke into Ukraine. It's in your backyard, and then, everybody else here that's not in Ukraine is neighbors, and it's their neighbor's backyard, right? But in the US, it's not in our backyard. So nobody here expects anybody to start lobbing conventional weapon missiles and stuff into the US right now. But there's still a great fear of lobbing nukes because we can be reached with nukes from North Korea. We can be reached with nukes from China. We can be reached with nukes from Russia, obviously. And so I'm thinking it's just, and not in my backyard issue for Americans just means that, oh, ho, hum, until we start talking about nukes, right? So you get Yankee attention when you mention nukes. You don't so much get it when you talk about which country Russia's going to invade next, because it doesn't. People don't feel like it concerns them here, right? And it's a sad situation, not to be able to look at it as a global problem, but that's the way people are. It's become so much more of an issue in Europe. Now that Russia's just marching through into its neighbors in a way that it wasn't 5 years ago, right? And yet it's not in the US because nobody here expects Russians on our doorstep anytime soon. So I don't know, do you have ideas about how we might get Americans more realistic about what happens if Russia is successful?
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you very much for this very nice question. I think this is a mistake for Americans to think that Russians could not be at the doorstep. I would like to have a very strong and clear nuclear message for Americans. We know today that China and Russia, Chinese leadership, Xi, and Russian leadership, Putin, have negotiations. They already have had this negotiation about Chinese nuclear military bases in Arctic. We know that America is not far from Russia because our planet is a globe. Our planet is a ball. So America is very close to Russia through our Arctic. And imagine one day Chinese nuclear bases in Arctic. This is exactly what Americans should fear. And how to avoid this, how to prevent this. If I should be an American analyst and read a news about Chinese-Russian negotiations about Russian and Chinese nuclear weapon in Arctic targeted at United States, I should immediately run to my boss and say, boss, we have only one way to prevent this. We should immediately support Yakut nation in proclaiming their Yakut independent Republic of Sakha-Yakutia, which could be a very strong economic nation because they have the whole set of all mineral resources on their territories, and these oppressed people receives nothing from that. And the huge Yakutia Sakha Republic will protect Americans, Canadians, and Scandinavian nations from Chinese nuclear weapon in Arctic. Only independent Yakut Republic is the barrier against Chinese penetration to Arctic. And Yakut people, they dream to be democratic, and they dream to be allies and partners of Europeans and American and United States, as well as Japan and other democratic countries of Asia. So this is the way. So
we forget the lessons of World War II, right? Where the Japanese came across the Aleutians, and the U.S. and Canada literally drove thousands of miles of road, thinking that they needed to possibly hold off an invasion. Japanese submarines, shelled the coast here. So historically, it isn't all that hard if you're in Northwest Asia to come straight across and onto the North American continent. And I think most Americans just don't realize how close Russia and China are.
Yes, and what we should show to Americans is not a map but a globe, just to understand how Russian Arctic is close to American security. And because so I am afraid that many people have maps on their walls at their houses and their offices, and they forgot that the planet is a globe, that the planet is a ball, and that Arctic is so close, and nuclear threat through Arctic is so close to the heart of America. This is the thing which you should be afraid of, and only independence of Yakuts and strong democratic Yakut Republic could be the prevention, could provide us the prevention way of the threat. But who in America knows about Yakut nation? Huge Yakut nation, and there are huge resources, which, by the way, is a huge source of money for American company business. By the way, today everything is directed to wage wars in Europe, and Yakut people receive nothing. But tomorrow, Yakut Republic could be a strong ally for global security in the whole northern hemisphere. Thank you.
So here's an integral idea. On the right side, we do not any longer show our children Mercator projections, right? We just stop it. It makes the Arctic not look like it really is. So I challenge you all to go out and find equal area projections of the Arctic and begin to see what it really looks like.
Okay, thanks. On that same topic, Valerii, don't you also think that for the Americans, if they would withdraw support for this war, then at some stage, more and more of Europe will be involved in this war, right? We can't avoid that. So there's either a point where NATO is attacked and America will have to commit ground troops, or there is a point where democracy in Europe is so much under threat that America has to do what it did in the Second World War. Don't you think that that's also a reason for the US to be concerned about what's happening?
Thank you very much, sir. Today at World Economic Forum in Davos, Ukrainian President Zelensky offered a speech on a special invitation. And he repeated more than a dozen times one sentence. He said, when we tried to protect us this way, the West said, don't escalate. When we asked for anti-missile weapon, the West, don't escalate. When we would like to deblock our sea, the West says, don't escalate. And every Ukrainian step was not supported by the West, but every Ukrainian step was accompanied by American concern, saying, don't escalate. But all these Ukrainian operations were successful, and there were no escalation anytime. And the best way, so today, as American and NATO generals say, NATO is waging war with Russia you know that Putin is absolutely sure that he's waging war not with Ukraine, but with NATO. But today, Putin is waging war with NATO, and NATO didn't lose any one single soldier because of absence of ground troops. So NATO generals, both European and American, highlight that today just a small amount of budget provided to Ukraine generates fantastic successes on the battlefield. Imagine, for the first time in history, the country without any fleet totally defeated with a huge fleet on the sea. This was Ukrainian victory over Russian Black Sea fleet, which was a huge fleet, and it was overcome without any Ukrainian ship. So the essence of war dramatically is changing every day. And today, the best way to prevent death of Polish, German, British, American troops is to support Ukraine to finish this war as soon as possible. The sooner will be the end of the war, the less people will die in both Ukraine and Russia, and there will be zero losses in British, American, German, Polish, and other armies. So the best way to prevent this is to support in time and support in good amount. This is today in Davos. Many people reminded Churchill appeal to America in the first years of Second World War. Please give us tools to finish this job. And today Ukrainians can say the same, like Churchill said. Please give us tools to finish this job, to prevent losses of any single serviceman of your countries and your armies. We should do this by ourselves and establish sustainable peace by freeing Ukrainian territory, falling down authoritarian Putin regime, introducing refederalization, decolonization, and establishing sustainable peace on the whole territory from Japan to Lithuania. So this is the best way. If Ukraine will fail, that means next day Lithuanian soldiers will die. And Lithuanian people know this very well as Latvian people, Estonian people. That is why these nations support Ukraine enormously, with absolutely enormous amount of support, taking into account sizes of their national economies and security budgets. And I would like to remind that just a few days ago, Estonian leader said that we should every day support Ukrainian security and defense with 2.5% of our national budget, and we should do this for a long time, and this is the best investment to our Estonian security. We do this not for Ukraine, we do this for our Estonia. And so those Polish farmers who block humanitarian goods delivery to Ukraine, they don't understand that every day they block humanitarian support to Ukraine from Germany and the Netherlands. Every they are blocking day makes more probable their own death being conscribed into Polish army to stop Russian army. And Russian army is still strong enough to crush some European armies. And I even dare to say that no one other army of Europe and America has so deep knowledge of the modern warfare and the modern tactics and strategy on the battlefield, because today it is not a Second World War, not a First World War. Please don't think that there are some things which are there are some similarities. This is absolutely 21st century war, which we Ukrainians know how to wage, and we should do this job. Please give us tools, like Churchill said, and we should finish this job. And there will be no losses from neither Polish army, nor Dutch army, nor American army.
Okay, very clear. Thank you, Valerii. So, Safrir, please.
Yeah. First of all, thank you very much. I like so much that somebody gives those insights, which I don't hear a lot. And I'm agreeing with 99% of what you say, especially that the green effect on the Western politics is really dangerous because the lack of understanding of red forces in the world. It's like there's a disconnection from huge Western population to understand the risk from red. And it's so good that you said, open your eyes. And this is first step that should be done. And I will soon ask my questions, but before that, I will just say that the nuclear challenge, because red forces have now nuclear, I don't see any possibilities for for any country to give up nuclear, but I am optimist that orange solutions of prevention wars will find technology solution that could prevent nuclear to keep the danger. I think this is probably the only realistic solution for nuclear that will make it make it impossible to use it because of prevention in technology. My question or my challenge, because I like everything you say, the solutions, the only solutions I find challenging is the independent, that one of the solutions for the world is to take any area or any population that is not feeling independent or have their own right to manage themselves, and just to give it, because we are seeing so much places, and you give example of Africa, of in the end of the colonialism, and they just left those countries to themselves, and this caused so much damage. And after 30 years, the West start to send NGOs to solve the shit. And from one hand, I don't think colonialism need to go back, so that you control the population and educated them, but also the other solution, just give independence to anyone, is so dangerous. And this is why I'm challenging. Maybe there is a better solution that we haven't tried in the world of some kind of third party that helping, that assistant new entities in the world, or because I'm really afraid of this. I see so much damage for populations that are, their values, their leadership is not ready, and they're just doing so much harm.
Thank you, sir, for the very nice question.
Valerii, we have about 5 minutes left, just so you're aware of it.
Yep. So very briefly answering this fantastic question, I would like to say the answer to your question, sir, is India. India is successful both as a democracy and economically, and growing and innovation. So that is the difference. Why? Because India was orange enough, India had orange elites that time already to start its modernization, and everything was fine in India. In Africa, purple dominated. So what is the difference? So what we can say about indigenous peoples of Northern Eurasia, currently Russian Empire. First, they are not purple. They are blue and orange enough to start their way. They have universities, they are urbanized, they have people with modern thinking, they have very well-educated elites. And I would like to say that Tatar statehood was before Moscow statehood. So Tatar state is older. Buryat state is older. So these nations have long traditions of statehood, and these nations are blue and orange enough and have strong orange elites. This is like India, and this is not like Africa. That is why there will be huge difference. And we should not be afraid of nation. So this will be more close to Kazakhstan story, Azerbaijan story, Ukrainian story, Estonian story, and so on. All these nations already passed that point of purple, and that is why African experience isn't valid. And just last minute, I would like to say that our challenge is integral, and our answer should be integral. Pure orange could not provide us with a solution. I would like to give you an example. A very orange solution is the more Europe trades with Russia, the less is probability of Russian aggression. This was not so. This statement totally failed. The more trade was with Russia, the more Russia prepared itself for aggression. Because logic of red logic is not similar to orange logic. Simple orange solution fails. We need integral solution, which includes both green and orange and blue and red and purple to understand Russia, to understand the war, to understand peace, and to establish sustainable peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Valerii. Thanks, Safir. And I think this is also a nice, next time when Dorto is presenting, I think we will talk more about that topic as well. So thank you very much.
Okay, Natalia.
Thank you. First of all, I'm first in such a company of people, because usually I'm joining the conferences, scientific seminars, and reading lectures online with my students, and this is like something different and new for me, and I'm very delighted to hear new people. And first, second is that I enjoyed the talk of my colleague from Ukraine, not colleague in profession, but we are from the same company of Aspen Institute, Kyiv. But I never heard him speaking a long, profound talk, and I enjoyed his structure, very well structured point of view on all these events during this war, and a very sound position, and I enjoyed it. That's all. And you heard this paper, and probably you have your own opinion, and I'm glad to have such possibility due to this event. And I met people from different professions and in our three-person talk, it was very interesting to hear my new new colleagues and to express my own view and my own situation. So these three things, I enjoyed all from the beginning to the end. Thank you so much for this interesting game.
Okay, thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. So, what new insights did this salon bring to you? Dozo?
Thank you. So, as for me, in my case, so I found that there is some understanding of the need to find for a solution of this war situation in Ukraine and whole Europe. So, and I found that by expert society in Europe, in Netherlands and other countries, and not only in Europe, but in the United States and Australia, the Ukraine can be heard by us, and we in a collaboration can find very good solution to bring a peace in the world. I think so. I found it, and because as a politician and activist, so I trying to establish connection to same people as we here. So, and it makes me hope that we are stronger. We are stronger than this barbarian invasion. Thank you.
Thanks. Saskia.
Thank you. I found the talk of Valerie very interesting. But what I really take away is the enormous difference I experienced talking about strategies and the mind and information and talking and feeling with the heart in the moment I hear the personal experiences of war and how I mean, it's almost incomprehensible that I'm sitting in total peace in a forest and somebody else speaks about their street being bombed or their parents being scared, the maternity ward being attacked, a baby not born, and how when I listen to my heart with that, how I feel deeply connected. And it doesn't matter how the other person thinks about which strategy is the best to stop this war. And I really have to make the step to go to the mind again and to talk about and to realize how huge the difference is in what I think about the strategy. I'm one of those dangerous greens. I'm one of those people who don't understand red, etc., etc. And yeah, so it's like two totally different realities, my heart and understanding the pain of war and being with the pain of war and trying to answer the question how to get out of this war.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, thanks for sharing, Saskia. Thanks. Elke.
Yes, thanks for another very interesting session. For me, what stood out is, I think, the topic of looking more at the Russian nationality, well, the non-Russian nationalities inside the Russian Federation. And I'm really glad that you are going to offer that as a next closing session. I think when's the date again? 31st or something. because we don't really have that topic on the radar at all. And the claim was quite maybe a bit provocative, that we're measuring with double standards, because we hear so little from these nationalities, and yet there seems to be a lot going on under the radar and under the surface of media attention. So I'm really curious for next time to hear more about those nationalities, those groups, and their thinking about the whole situation, and to what degree it might actually make sense to put much more focus on these, and as Valerii said, even maybe start using them as treating them as partners under the radar. I mean, it would be a kind of subversive, but why not? I like subversive ideas. So that was quite an interesting aspect for me.
Thanks. Well, I will put in the second question. It's a follow-up question. So, what is the meaning? It's also in the chat. What is the meaning of these insights for the world and for yourself? Dozo, you put your hand on?
Yes. I want to say that when we was talking with Helen and Natalia, and I wrote some idea in my mind, as you asked it for what's the meaning for the world. So, but what we want to do, we want to find a solution method of solving the problem. And one idea we found that it's very important to create some psychological portrait of people in Russia who doing decisions, like President Putin, Minister Lavrov, such persons. So because Natalia is a doctor of philosophy, and when she talked, and this moment, I think that we have to create this. We have to use our ability to create such portrait of Russian political persons, and it could be useful for expert society, which European politicians can base on this and do decision how to negotiate, how to answer, how to reply to Russian political. Russian political. So this is my what it brings to world and for me. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Yuri.
First of all, I would start that I feel connected to the world through these people collected on this meeting, and I feel that current situation in the world, new technologies bring us to such position when we are able to create new plan. We're able to create a sustainable plan for sustainable peace, not only in Ukraine, but for the whole world, because we can easily exchange through Zoom, through our other technologies, our minds, our thoughts, our ideas. and it's bring us closer to better better world, and I hope for peaceful world. Thank you for this event.
Thanks, Yuri. Raza.
Okay, for me, I really appreciated Larry's presentation. Really good. So I was just nodding along. Then I was in a group with Yaroslav, so we didn't need to convince each other of anything. So anyway, but in more of the conversations that I participate, I think the more I get kind of settled on the idea that the path to a lasting peace is actually through knowing how to be in conflict well. Like, we need to know how to conflict at every level. So really like that Valerii really took the war out of flat land and broke it, like kind of opened it up. Yes, there are responses from every value system, and we need to think about each of them and how necessary it is to truly understand who we are dealing with. And, you know, as Dorja was saying, like, how do you talk to a person, you know, he's from criminal world. We have no ability to do that. It's not in the politics. And yeah, and I kind of think that living for too well for too long, it disconnects from this element of what violence really means. Because, you know, kind of sometimes, you know, we speak to colleagues in the Western Europe, and kind of, you know, the most threat that they could identify with is a bad boss, or like kind of person has a bad day. And that's not that kind of red that Ukraine is dealing with. It's not that. It's like, it's really, you know, you fight for survival. And yeah, so it's yeah, so we just sort of really, what are the implications for the world to just truly, really start understanding that other does not think exactly the same way that you do. So, you know, when Europe was creating interdependence with Russia, Russia at the same time was creating dependence for Europe. So it's like two sides completely misaligned. So yeah, a desperate need to understand and embody, most probably just to have like a truly visceral experiences of these more basic value systems. Like, it's completely missing, it seems like. Yeah, and I look forward for the next session. It will be interesting.
Thank you, Raza. Yuliya.
Very much for the opportunity, and thank you for the invitation. It is very nice to see so many people from my country, but it is also so important to understand and to find understanding in the eyes of the people we're seeing in this place. I think what it might matter to the world is also for you, for the people who are the European global intellectuals, to see us with your own eyes, to see us not as the people who are somewhere in the news, but people who can talk, not people who are being portrayed by the propaganda media as Nazi, but those people who have hearts and souls and families and dreams and friendships and aspirations. But now we're very busy fighting somebody who thinks we do not deserve it. I also think that for the world, it might mean that 28 of you half an hour ago and 19 of you might also connect a little bit deeper, as Rosa said, on a visceral level, through the guts, through the feeling of the heart, through the feeling of the stomach, through the feeling of your bones, through the feeling of your blood. Try to understand that it's not a war for gas. It's not a war for resources. It's not even the war for territory. It's the war for the extinction of the other people who say that we are not Russians. And therefore, this is the only premise to kill us, to bomb us every day with every missile, with the cruise missiles hitting the maternity houses, hitting the malls, the shopping malls. Our people today, my friends, who used to be the deans of the universities, who used to be the teachers, who used to be the students, who used to be the office workers, today in -20, they go to the front line because they understand that if they are not doing it, the whole country will be erased. And as Valerii said, next morning, the Russians will be in Poland, the Russians will be in Hungary, the Russians will be in Finland, the Russians will be in Germany. And maybe that might mean to the world that maybe those little steps that everyone can do today, everybody can read a little bit more today, everybody can connect a little bit more today, might be a little bit better. So that's exactly why we're here, and we want to connect and to make sure that people feel us, see us, do not neglect us, and do not betray us. I deeply thank you, Auke, for the invitation. I deeply thank you, all the integral community, for uniting and connecting and for feeling and being relating. Thank you.